Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about something that might completely change how you think about your appetite. You know those days when you're just not hungry at all, or when you can't stop eating even though you know you should be full. What if I told you that the answer might not be in your willpower or your emotions, but in your gut? Let me explain why a disrupted gut can completely throw off your appetite signals. Your gut is way more than just a tube that processes food. It's actually one of the most sophisticated communication centers in your body. Inside your intestines, you have millions of specialized cells that are constantly producing hormones and sending signals to your brain about hunger, fullness, and even what types of food you should be craving. When your gut is healthy and balanced, these signals work beautifully. But when something disrupts your gut, this entire communication system goes haywire. Let me break down what's really happening. Your gut produces dozens of different hormones that regulate appetite. The most important ones include ghrelin, which makes you feel hungry, and hormones like leptin, GLP-1, and PYY, which make you feel satisfied and full. These hormones are released by cells lining your intestines, and they're incredibly sensitive to the state of your gut environment. When your gut microbiome is balanced and your intestinal lining is healthy, these hormones are released at the right times in the right amounts. But when your gut gets disrupted, everything changes. Here's where it gets really interesting. Your gut microbiome, those trillions of bacteria living in your intestines, they're not just passive residents, they're actively involved in regulating your appetite. These bacteria produce compounds called short-chain fatty acids when they digest fiber, and these compounds directly influence the release of appetite hormones. They also produce neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. In fact, about 90% of your body's serotonin is produced in your gut. When your gut bacteria are out of balance, a condition we call dysbiosis, the production of these critical signaling molecules gets disrupted. Now imagine what happens when you take antibiotics. Eat a diet low in fiber and high in processed foods, experience chronic stress, or deal with an infection. Your gut bacteria populations shift dramatically. Some beneficial species die off while others, potentially harmful ones, overgrow. This imbalance changes everything. The signals your gut sends to your brain about hunger and fullness become distorted. You might feel ravenous even after eating a full meal, or you might have no appetite at all even though your body needs food. Let me tell you about inflammation, because this is crucial. When your gut lining gets damaged, whether from poor diet, stress, medications, or infections, it becomes inflamed. This inflammation triggers your immune system, and inflammatory molecules called cytokines start circulating in your bloodstream. These cytokines can cross into your brain and affect the hypothalamus, which is your appetite control center. Chronic gut inflammation is directly linked to disrupted appetite regulation. Some people lose their appetite completely because inflammatory signals suppress hunger. Others experience increased cravings, especially for sugary and fatty foods, because inflammation disrupts the normal feedback loops that tell you when to stop eating. Here's something that really surprised me when I learned about it. Your gut bacteria can actually manipulate your food cravings. Different species of bacteria thrive on different types of food. Some prefer fiber, others prefer sugar, and some love fat. When certain bacteria populations grow too large, they can influence your cravings to get more of what they want. If you have an overgrowth of sugar-loving bacteria, you might find yourself with intense cravings for sweets and carbs. It's not weakness or lack of willpower. It's your disrupted gut microbiome literally influencing your brain to feed it what it wants. The damage to your intestinal lining itself plays a huge role too. Your gut lining has cells that directly sense nutrients in the food you eat. When you eat protein, fat, or carbohydrates, these cells detect them and release appropriate satiety hormones. But when your gut lining is damaged, a condition often called leaky gut or increased intestinal permeability, these nutrient-sensing cells don't function properly. They might not detect nutrients correctly, leading to delayed or absent fullness signals. You could eat a nutritious meal and still feel unsatisfied because your gut can't properly register what you've eaten. I've also learned that the speed at which food moves through your digestive system, something we call motility, affects appetite regulation. When your gut is disrupted, motility can become irregular. If food moves too slowly, you might feel constantly full and bloated with no appetite. If it moves too quickly, you might feel hungry all the time because nutrients aren't being properly absorbed and your gut sensors can't properly register the food passing through. What really gets me is how this creates a trap. When your appetite signals are off, you might start eating in ways that further damage your gut. You might skip meals because you're not hungry, depriving your gut bacteria of the fiber they need. Or you might overeat or choose unhealthy foods in response to false hunger signals, which feeds harmful bacteria and increases inflammation. The disrupted gut causes appetite changes, which lead to eating patterns that make the gut disruption worse. The path forward starts with understanding this connection. Your appetite isn't just about willpower or emotional eating, though those factors exist. There's a very real, physical, biological basis in your gut health. When you work on healing your gut through proper nutrition, stress management, adequate sleep, and sometimes targeted probiotics or other interventions, your appetite regulation can normalize. The signals start flowing correctly again. Food cravings decrease. Your hunger and fullness cues become reliable again. Your gut health and your appetite are inseparable. Taking care of one means taking care of the other.